I think this mic's, oh, now it's working. There you go. Now you can hear me. Hello, BWSI. How's everybody doing? Good. Awesome. BWSI is? Okay, great. Awesome. Fantastic. I hope you're all having a fantastic beginning of your second week. We are very lucky today to have Elizabeth Ronan here from the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, where she's a full-stack developer. The PJM Foundation has been one of our long-term sponsors and supporters of BWSI. They fund a lot of our outreach activity, and they're really an interesting foundation that lives at sort of the nexus of AI, data science, and social impact and social good. So it's really an exciting opportunity here to have Elizabeth here to talk to you all today, and look forward to the discussion. We're going to take Q&A, I think, after the discussion today. So thank you very much. Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. So hello again, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Elizabeth Ronan, and I am a junior full-stack developer at the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. I am super excited to have the opportunity today to share with you a bit about what the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation does. I'll probably refer to us as PJMF throughout the presentation. And I'll talk to you a bit more about the products and services function at Patrick J. McGovern, which is the team that I work on, about one of the products that our team has created, and then a bit more about my role, my career journey, how I ended up here today. And at the end of my talk, as mentioned, we'll have about 20 minutes if I time it right for questions. So getting started. The Patrick J. McGovern Foundation is a philanthropic institution that is dedicated to advancing AI and data science solutions to create a thriving, equitable, and sustainable future for all. We're not a traditional charity that's doing tech. We're a challenge to how tech gets done, and you'll see that throughout this conversation. In 2025, we gave out $75.8 million in grants to 149 grant partners, and we exist to make AI safe, just, and in service of communities. And I wanted to talk a bit about why Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, and why right now. So first of all, this is your moment. You'll be entering the workforce when the rules of AI are still being written. And the sector working on AI for good needs people who can deploy these AI tools with human judgment. The roles that are being built at this intersection didn't exist a decade ago, and they're being invented by people your age. Why us? Like I said, we gave out $75.8 million in grants in 2025 to 149 partners in 13 countries and 34 states. And we can't wait for technology to trickle down to communities, so we build it in-house. One of the tools that I'll be talking about later, Grant Guardian, is used by 550 plus grant makers. Our network connects you to nonprofits, philanthropies, tech companies, and policymakers who are all working on the same problem. And then why now? $900 billion in global private AI investment is projected by 2027. Who shapes where and how that capital gets deployed is not decided yet. Governments are debating regulation, foundations are deploying tech, companies are releasing advancements, and the window to make an impact is still open. And the seat is empty. Civil society has a place at the table, but it only stays there if people like you, people with the right skills, value, and mindset show up. And then why me? Why am I here today? So as a junior full-stack developer at the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, I develop web applications for internal use at PJMF and externally. I touch on the parts of the web application that you see, as well as the code that actually makes it work. When developing a new feature, I'm responsible for the full implementation, starting with database changes, then creating back-end endpoints and handlers, and then designing and creating the front-end interface. For example, just to kind of ground us, when I'm designing a feature For example, something that lets a foundation manage a list of grantees. You might want to create a grantee, edit information about the grantee, delete that grantee. I start by building the database tables to store that information. And then I design the backend, which allows your browser to talk to the backend behind the scenes and get that information. And then the front-end interface where you're actually clicking around. I really enjoy this feeling of building from the ground up. It's very rewarding to me to see the working final product in front of our users. And then quickly, a bit more about my role. As someone who's more junior in their software development career, I came into this job knowing that I had a lot to learn. And every day, there are opportunities for me to improve through code reviews, seeing the high quality work of my peers, brainstorming on how to tackle some of these hard problems together. Another really cool thing that I'll talk a bit more about is that PJMF offers free tech consultations to grant partners and other mission-aligned organizations. And those tech consultations are awesome opportunities to learn about how other organizations are using tech and AI for good, and for PJMF to offer their expertise and guidance. They're a great way to keep up with new technologies and new schools of thoughts, to learn about the really cool work that people are doing in the sector. And tech is advancing at such a fast pace. No one has it all figured out. And it's an exciting time to just be starting out in my software development career. I get to be in the room where this innovation happens, and I even get to contribute, which is really exciting. And more about me, how I ended up in this role, I'll get to later on in the presentation. But right now, I care deeply about responsible tech. I put 4 pillars of responsible tech here, but there are so many more considerations when it comes to designing a product. First, we have transparency. We should always have visibility into AI usage and decision-making processes, and algorithms alone should not make consequential decisions. We should design technology for people and with people of all abilities and backgrounds, and real people should be involved at every stage of development and deployment. Fairness and bias mitigation, the data that we train models on reflects the world as it has been, not necessarily the world as it should be, or as we would like it to be. So we must be aware of that and try to mitigate that bias. And then data privacy and security. People should know what data is being collected about them, and they should have meaningful control over it. Security and privacy must be built in from the start. They can't just be an afterthought. So that's a little bit about me. Now we're going to talk more about the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation and the work that we actually do. So grounding us in the moment, AI will shape the next century of human progress, and our choices now determine whether that progress is shared or not. The Patrick J. McGovern Foundation brings the power of artificial intelligence and data science to the social sector so that every community, not just a few, benefits from the technological transformation that's underway. And then I wanted to share a quote from our president. When the world looks back at this moment, history will not ask whether AI advanced, it will ask who it served. And philanthropy must answer that call with courage, investing in open systems, creative communities, and global cooperation, so that the promise of AI becomes a shared inheritance for humanity. A little bit more about what we believe. So here I have an old story and a new one. So previously, innovation happened in Silicon Valley. We receive it downstream. There's a global AI race indicating how power will be shared and concentrated going forward. And the closest that we get to this technology is when we buy and use the product. But we're looking at a new reality where nonprofits use AI to enable communities to solve real problems. Rather than participating in the global AI race, nonprofits build and deploy technology as a resource. And we're led by 3 convictions. Firstly, accountability is a requirement. AI and data systems should be built with and not for the communities that they affect. Second, AI is essential tooling for good. Nonprofits and civic institutions are solving some of the hardest problems. They need the same technical capacity as the private sector. And third, partnership is a collective responsibility. No single foundation, company, or government can build a just technological future alone. We work in partnership by design. So what do we actually do? Here's our general approach. There are 3 pillars. First, finding and funding partners. We define the landscape of critical issues, articulate a vision for the impact that we believe is possible, and fund the partners that we think are most likely to make it real. Second, tech assistance. This is what I was talking about a bit earlier. PJMF provides technical assistance, AI literacy, and deployment guidance from in-house experts. And we meet partners where they are and help them go further faster. And lastly, building tools to advance the social sector. We build tools that the social sector needs and the market has not. And I'll talk a bit more about our product, Grant Guardian. It gives foundation faster due diligence for grant making at scale. And what does all of this mean? It means that we engage with nonprofits and funders at each stage of their AI adoption journey. Some are just getting started. Some may already be using AI for impact in the social sector. Some are adopting new tools. Some are creating new tools. Wherever you're at, PJMF has resources to help. I'm going to show a quick video about the work of the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation.
AI will affect every part of our human experience. We have to ask some foundational questions. Questions of fairness, of privacy. How do we embed ethics and responsible principles? How do we ensure that the benefits of AI are actually for all of us?
We believe that humanity is first and technology is second. How can artificial intelligence and data science help humanity?
At the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, we work with nonprofits and governments around the world who are solving challenges like access to healthcare, mitigation of climate change, of making sure that everybody has a right to work and has access to a good education. We do this work by providing funding and support, but also by providing technical capacity. An in-house team of data scientists and AI engineers that partner with nonprofits to build AI fluency at scale, to make sure that those who are right at the front lines of vulnerability have exactly the same access to the most powerful tools humanity's ever created in the form of artificial intelligence.
We've really benefited from the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, helping us fund all the different pieces that go into a successful project, including back office work, field work, technology development, R&D. And in that complete picture, they've really helped us scale our mission, advancing conservation.
The McGovern Foundation is more than just a funder. They really are thinking about the ecosystem and how they connect people to each other and how that work can actually expand from not just one area, but other parts of the world. Really grateful for all of those connections they've made for us.
The Patrick J. McGovern Foundation believed in us and have given us a platform of legitimacy. Really kind of boosted our profile and it also gave us confidence that what we're doing is the right track.
It feels less like a business transaction and more like we're part of the family.
Every interaction I've had with the team at the McGovern Foundation has just been very dignified, treating you as an equal. I'm deeply grateful, not just for their financial support, but most importantly for their constant desire to elevate the conversations we're having, to enable us to partner with other people, to platform the work that our communities are doing.
My father believed that technology could be a force for good. And so really for the last 10 years, that's what we've been focused on. We've given out approximately $500 million since 2017 to continue his legacy.
The Patrick J. McGovern Foundation really believes in bringing people together so that they can learn from each other and go further faster.
We have a critical opportunity to ensure that the ways in which AI advances show what's possible from a human-centered technology perspective. All of our interventions are centered around that single goal.
We built the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation around one core purpose: to create sustainable, thriving, equitable futures for every person on the planet. To build a new way of thinking about technology, not merely as something that's done for profit, but is created for purpose. And at the end of the day, inspires every person on the planet to be an engineer of our own digital future.
I didn't make that video, so I don't really deserve the applause, but thank you. So now I'm going to talk more about our 4 methods of deployment. So there are basically 4 pillars to the work that we do. The first is grant making. Then we have products and services, which is the function that I work on, where we architect our technology future through in-house product development. Then we have capacity building and advocacy and public engagement, amplifying community-driven stories to drive sector-wide change. I wanted to highlight the work of a few of our grant partners. I know some were featured in the video, but just to get an idea of some of the organizations that we fund. So first, we have a case management app. This is a machine learning risk model for predicting and preventing interruption of treatment for HIV patients in Nigeria. We have City Catalyst, which is a platform that uses machine learning to analyze satellite imagery and make it easier for cities to track and reduce their GHG emissions. The AI Forward Alliance, which empowers a generation of female leaders and innovators to use technology to drive innovation to solve complex global problems. And lastly, Check is an AI-based open source platform that allows organizations to provide fact-checked and timely content to their community at scale. So those are just 4 examples of some of the ways that AI can be used for good and some of the areas that PJMF is funding and working with these organizations. Now, more about the work that I do. I work on the products and services function at PJMF. We architect our technology future through in-house product development and external-facing support. And to give you a more concrete idea of what that might mean, I'm going to talk a bit about our product, Grant Guardian. This is a financial due diligence tool, and I'm going to talk more about what that is, because you might not know. I certainly didn't before I started in this role. First, I'll talk about the problem that we were solving and our approach. Financial due diligence in philanthropy was broken for many reasons. Just to give some context, this is when an organization like the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation connects and communicates with a potential grantee, and they want to evaluate their financial statements and everything to see kind of what would come of their investment if they have made good financial choices thus far, and going forward, how that would pay off if we were to invest in them. So doing this due diligence was costly. It was prone to bias. It could be inconsistent across grant makers and also across grantees within like a single grant maker. And also it can be structurally unfair in that smaller nonprofits without really polished financials were disadvantaged. And a lot was at stake. $557 billion is distributed annually in charitable giving in the United States. And there are over 1.9 million registered nonprofits in the US alone. It takes foundations hours to conduct financial due diligence for each grant that they administer, and many foundations end up skipping this step entirely. We saw this challenge as an opportunity and created this product, Grant Guardian. And I want to talk a bit about what Grant Guardian is not before we talk about what it is. It's not about increasing capacity, it is about increasing capacity and creating visibility. It's not a decision tool. So Grant Guardian does not tell you that you should or should not move forward with a certain grantee. It's completely customizable, and each foundation sets different risk thresholds and parameters that matter most to them. Today's one-size-fits-all approach to due diligence can adversely impact some smaller and less mature nonprofits, and Grant Guardian allows you to account for that. And lastly, it's human-led by design. Grant Guardian provides information using AI in an efficient and organized manner, but it does not make decisions for you, which aligns with one of those pillars that I talked about of having a human in the loop and transparency, especially when decisions are being powered by AI. Grant Guardian is a tool built for humans that analyzes tax returns, audits, and other financial documents to allow a user at a foundation to assess a nonprofit's financials effectively and generate a financial risk score based on that data. It also produces unique dashboards and reports for each foundation and standardizes these assessments across the portfolio, which reduces error and bias. As of today, 550 plus grant makers use Grant Guardian, meaning about 1,100 or more users. It's just one of the tools that I work on. We also work on some internal tooling and any new products that we might want to create. I wanted to talk more about my career journey and how I got here today. I didn't always know that I wanted to be a software developer. I think that it's pretty rare to have a clear picture of your future and what you want to do right when you're expected to. For instance, when you're graduating high school and figuring out what's next. When I was a junior in high school, I was lucky enough to participate in a program called Girls Who Code, which was a 7-week summer immersion program, and we were taught the basics of computer programming. I learned from other women in the tech field, and this program got me curious about CS, but I wasn't really convinced that I wanted to be a computer programmer. So when I got to Northeastern University, I chose to major in math. I knew that I liked math, was good enough at it, and that studying math would give me some flexibility down the line as I was figuring out what I wanted to do. And when I was at school, I wanted to learn more about programming, so I took on a data science minor, getting my first real taste of coding in Java and Python. And alongside that, I started taking classes in women's gender and sexuality studies, which might seem like a pretty odd pairing, but it made a lot of sense for me. What excited me most about tech was its impact on real people's lives. And when built responsibly and placed in the right hands, tech can really be an equalizer. Those women's studies classes helped me see that technology isn't neutral. It reflects the blind spots and values of those people who build it. So post-graduation, I got a job working for the city of Somerville as the racial and social justice analyst. This role involved analyzing surveys and focus group notes and city data, finding patterns in the data, and bringing those patterns to the people who had the power to act on them. It was exactly the kind of work that I had been drawn to, which is using data to help build a more just world, a more just city. And after a few years in the role, I found myself wanting a change. I wanted to refresh my technical skills and find a role where I could learn from engineers who were further along in their careers than me. And at the time, I was the only analyst on a small team, and I wanted a team to brainstorm with, to gut check with, debate, and build with. I also was at a point in my life where I felt ready for an adventure. I wanted to move somewhere new, learn new things, and meet new people. So for my next chapter, I chose to go to graduate school. I knew I wanted to stay close to public policy from my experience working for the city of Somerville. And I wanted to go deeper on the technical side, so I looked at programs that did a bit of both. And I landed at the University of Chicago in their Harris School of Public Policy in a joint program with the Computer Science School. So it's called a Master of Science in Computational Analysis and Public Policy, which is a complete mouthful, and I've tried to explain it to my 85-year-old grandmother, and it just does not land, but it's basically computer science and public policy. So I packed up my apartment and my cat, and I moved to Chicago, where I found a community of engineers who believed that tech could actually make the world a better place. I took statistics, economics, programming, and policy courses, and I worked on projects that actually meant a lot to me, and I also saw amazing projects that my peers had worked on that changed my mind about things, opened my worldview a bit. I worked on projects about health outcomes for pregnant people in the US. I examined gentrification in Chicago. I created tooling for nonprofits, for beneficiary targeting, a lot of really interesting projects. And a really great thing about being in a university setting is that there are always interesting events and speakers on campus. And one day last spring, I decided to attend a Tech for Good Careers conference that was on campus. And it was sponsored by an organization called the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, which might sound familiar. I heard fascinating stories from my current manager, Hassan Mahmoud, of AI and social impact, and about some of the grant partners that I talked about with you today. And to cap off the day, I attended a fireside chat with Vilas Dar, who is the president of PJMF. He talked about the role that people like you and I play in shaping what technology becomes and embedding equity and justice in the tech that we create. And this is stuff that I had been thinking about my whole career. It was awesome to hear that other people were talking about it and working on it. So after the conference, I wrote down McGovern Foundation in the Notes app of my phone, and I checked the website periodically and found this role, and here's where I landed. So that's a quick overview of my career journey. And then in closing, I definitely don't have all the answers when it comes to shaping your future, but I can share some of the things that I've learned so far. So I have about 5 pieces of advice. Take them with a grain of salt, but they helped me a lot. The first is to pay attention to what you enjoy, but more so pay attention to what you don't. So as I mentioned, I loved math. So when I was in college, I took a 6-month internship at a financial firm, and I realized almost immediately that that wasn't the work I wanted to be doing. In a work setting, pay attention to what makes the hours fly by, what you get really engrossed in, and also pay attention to what makes you watch the clock. Next, I have try unexpected things and say yes to new opportunities. You are more than the work that you do. I like to use this metaphor. It's kind of silly, but your life is like a delicious soup, and you get to decide what ingredients go in there. So for me, I love singing in a choir, going on runs, cooking and baking, spending time with my friends and family. And each of those things is a key ingredient in a fulfilling life. And if I left them out, I would just have broth. So don't get too focused on your work and forget to have fun. Think about what ingredients you want in your soup. For my third takeaway, something that I've learned to look out for along the way is black and white thinking. If someone tells you that something is simply good or simply bad, there's usually some nuance that's being left out. And the most timely example I can think of right now is AI. You've probably heard both sides of the argument, some saying that AI is dangerous, it's going to steal our jobs, that using AI is lazy. And others will speak unquestioningly about AI's limitless promise of unmatched productivity and efficiency, and that AI is the future, and you better get on board now or you're going to be left behind. This kind of black and white thinking, in my mind, shuts down the more interesting conversation, which is how do we use AI well? How do we make sure AI benefits all and not just some? And how do we embed our values in these tools and put them in the hands of those whose lives will be improved the most? These are the questions that I'm interested in and that PJMF works to address. My fourth takeaway is that self-compassion is a much better motivator than self-criticism. And this is a lesson that I think I learned the hard way. In high school and college, I was very successful, but it came at a cost. My main motivation was self-criticism. My thought processes often sounded like, if I don't achieve X, Y, Z, I'm not smart enough, good enough, worthy enough, or deserving. I found myself, toward the end of college, pretty burnt out and wondering why I was forcing myself to do these things in the first place. And I wasn't feeling secure or happy when I did achieve something great. As I got older, I learned to tap into self-compassion. I care about myself, I want a fulfilling life and career, and I can identify what makes me happy, and I deserve to pursue those things. And that's a whole lot more motivating than I'm bad if I don't achieve X, Y, Z. And lastly, one of my favorite quotes, which is popularized by Marshall McLuhan, goes like this: "We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us." Computer programming is not an amoral career path. And with each line of code that we write, we make consequential decisions that impact real people's lives. We must feel that responsibility and honor it. And once again, technology reflects the values and the blind spots of the people who build it. Thank you all so much for your time today.
That was great. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk around with the mic so that people on the Zoom can hear it as well. Here you go.
Hi, thank you so much for the talk. It was really interesting to hear about AI and the other side of it, because often we hear about the private sector, but not a lot about the nonprofit side. So I had a question. How do you make sure that AI is not biased, and how do you identify those biases?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I think one that it's one of the biggest questions of our time. I can tell you that most of the work that I do involves using AI tools that have already been created by someone else. So it's hard as a user of those tools to know what kind of work they've done to root out any bias. There's definitely resources. So we use a lot of resources from Anthropic. We use Claude. And whenever you're using one of these tools, I think it's really important to look into what the organization building the product is doing to mitigate that bias. So I know that Anthropic has people that work with them to train models to have certain guardrails, and like in decision making, they kind of validate through queries that the model is not embedding bias. But it's one of those things that you really have to do your research on and make sure that the tools that you're using are effectively tested by the organizations that are creating them. Another important way to think about this is, because I don't have control over Claude, I am not, if I'm using Claude in a tool, I'm not going to let AI make any consequential decisions for a user. So for instance, with Grant Guardian, we let Claude, we use very specific prompts so that Claude can synthesize this data and create summaries, but we don't ever let Claude say, yes, you should fund this organization, or no, you shouldn't. Through very specific prompting, you can just get exactly the information you want out of the AI, and then you can take that information and use your human judgment to make a decision about it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once again, thank you for giving such a good presentation. It's very good that there are organizations who care about equitizing resources. My question is, once you have AI that you can objectively say is doing good for the world, how do you balance that out with sunk costs, like building infrastructure that could like perpetuate harms? Like at what point do you say the benefits of building this tool outweigh the harms that it took to build the tool in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I would say when you're making decisions around AI use, there are a lot of ways to kind of mitigate that impact. I know that one of the areas where building AI can most impact people is in creating data centers. And data centers can often have adverse effects on the communities that they're built in. So something that PJMF does is that we have this policy arm of the organization that works with people who are creating policies around how data centers are built, and are they using sustainable energy, and are we ensuring that the communities that they're built in and around are not being adversely impacted by them. There are all sorts of decisions along the way where you can make sure that creating AI, using AI is not having an adverse impact on folks. I hope that was answered at least part of your question. But overall, there's some middle ground, and in each step of this decision making, we have to kind of weigh the impact on people's lives so you don't get to a final product that adversely impacts people, and then you have to say, oh, how can we walk that back and fix some of that at the end?
I have a somewhat little different question, because I saw that you're using cloud code. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, for many of us who we haven't used it, but how has that AI, fundamentally changed how you develop software, and what do you see as the future, especially, something that they haven't experienced them as much as you have.
Yeah.
Maybe some useful comments you can make for our students?
Sure. This is a great question, and one that I definitely can talk a bit about. So I, like I said, was a math major, and I had a data science minor, but I wouldn't say that coming out of undergrad I was a programmer. Then in my master's degree, we started with, it was a 2-year program, and I took a lot of computer science classes. And the first year of my program, we were not allowed to use AI at all. And I really think that was a great decision, because I was able to learn the fundamentals of coding without AI assistance. And we took like pen and paper exams where you were writing down what would be the output of this block of code, or is there a bug here, can you find it and identify it? I think that building those skills without AI is so essential. And then when you're later on in your career, when I was in my second year, and now when I'm in my role now, I am able to use AI-assisted coding, but I'm able to identify, oh no, I wouldn't agree with the decision that Claude Code is making right now. I'm gonna take a different route. Or I'm able to find bugs, and so you really have to kind of build the fundamental skills, and then you're able to use the tools more effectively. Yeah, I think that I was talking about this with a colleague recently, a lot of software development roles, if you're using AI, you're doing less manual coding, you're doing more reading of code. And reading of code is a really important skill, especially if you're working with other folks. Like, you conduct code reviews where I write code, someone else reads it and verifies that there aren't any bugs or edge cases that I've missed. But yeah, I would really spend the time to learn the fundamentals, because you'll find yourself kind of in deep water as you go forward. Also, I am really grateful for my team, because I was able to say this to my manager. When I started the role, I was like, I don't want to use too much AI and do a ton of AI-assisted coding, because I'm at an early point in my career, and I think if I rely too heavily on those tools, I'm going to miss out on building some of these fundamental skills. And you should feel empowered to say that when you're in the workplace. And if you're at a company that prioritizes your learning and growth over just like efficiency and output, they will understand and they'll think that that totally makes sense and is just a great way to learn and develop your skills.
Great. I think we're going to go to online for the next 2 questions.
All right, Chelsea, could you unmute and ask your question, please?
Hi, I really loved your presentation, and your 5 lessons really resonated with me. And that kind of made me think back towards my day-to-day at school, where I see a lot of the practical use of AI, but not much of the purposely helpful use of it. Which makes me wonder what pathways or opportunities exist for high schoolers or undergraduate students to get involved with the foundation or with spreading the mission of AI for social good for more of the future generations.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I know that we do a lot of work where we go out to universities and we speak to high schoolers about some of the work that we do. My goal here is to kind of plant the seed of tech for good. AI can be used for good. And we also, as an organization, have a program where we hire early in career folks and their associates within the organization. And it's a 2-year program where we help with networking and building some of these skills for people who are right out of college. I don't have, off the top of my head, some specific resources for high schoolers, but I will definitely ask about that and send that so it can be distributed, because I'm sure that we have a lot of areas where we need folks like you guys to get involved.
Ryan, could you unmute and ask your question, please?
Sorry, do you say my name?
Brian. Brian Yu.
Okay.
Brian Yu, could you please unmute?
Or we might just do one more in person and then go back to online here in a second. So give us a moment. We're going to do another person, then we'll go online.
Sorry, guys. We have a question. Thanks.
I want to ask about your experience in college, both undergraduate and graduate, as someone who's studying. So, seemingly different fields, both in science, like math, and computer science, and not political, but like social studies. How was your experience studying those versus people who like focus on science, and how did that help you in your future career? Was it primarily helping you to decide what you want to do after you graduate, or was it also helpful in the job you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I started my math degree, every semester you have your required courses and then you have room for a couple electives. And I think this is good advice too. At the time, I wanted to have a bit of a balance in my schedule. I knew that some of my math courses were going to be really intense, and would use like the analytical part of my brain. I wanted some courses that were more reading, writing, and so I followed what I was interested in, and that's how I ended up taking some of the women's studies courses. And I do think that there are a couple ways that that benefited me. Firstly, when I graduated and was applying to jobs, I had a very unique resume. So the positions that I was looking at, which were at the intersection of tech and policy or social justice, they saw my resume and saw just like concrete proof that I was interested in the work that they were doing and like believed in their mission. So I think that benefited me a lot. I also think that being in the tech field, but being able to have those kind of communication skills, particularly explaining tech concepts to a non-technical audience is one of the biggest skills that I built and something that I think made me very hireable. So in my job for the city of Somerville, my role was positioned within the mayor's office, and we would have survey results that we would analyze, and I would have to translate those survey results into something that like the mayor would, who didn't have a strong technical background because she was the mayor, you know, that she was able to understand and work with. So I think that having kind of a diverse skill set in that way really was helpful to me. And it also during college was helpful because I felt like multiple parts of my brain were used. I wasn't just like doing math homework all the time, you know, I was reading essays and writing papers. Yeah, so, and it gave me a unique background that I think has carried me through and helped me. You know, in interviews, people might ask you about your technical skills and stuff, but they might also say, hey, I saw this on your resume. Can you tell me more about that? That's actually really interesting to me. So it really helped me in a lot of ways.
We're going to try online again. Let's get this go.
Partha, could you unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I had a question about the opportunity gap in the technology industry. So people all around the world have different opportunities, and some are disadvantaged compared to others. So I was wondering how you guys tackle this problem, and how are you guys using AI to assist this initiative?
That's a good question, and it's so true. I am not, like I said, I work in the products and services team, so I don't have a full grasp on all of the organizations that the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation is funding. But that's something that I could look into as well online. I'm sure we have more resources about some of our grantees. And like I said, there is one organization that I talked about that was in particular empowering women in the tech field and AI field. A lot of our grantees are trying to get this technology in the hands of those who don't have the same opportunities as the rest of us. So that's an area that we try to put strategic funding to empower people who don't have the same opportunities to use those tools to advance in their careers or just have better standards of life and everything like that.
Awesome. We're going to do another one online.
All right, Brian, can you ask your question now, please?
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. I think it was really inspiring, and I'm sorry about what happened earlier. I wasn't at my computer. But my question is, you mentioned one specific thing, which is black and white thinking, and that's kind of like not falling into a dichotomy of thinking AI is good and bad. And so my question is, what practices do you use to practice gray thinking or like mixing both viewpoints? And do you have any suggestions on how to synthesize a more informed gray opinion?
Yeah. So one area that I can talk about that my colleague wrote a really interesting blog post about is about cloud infrastructure, which like saying that that's interesting and then leading up to cloud infrastructure is kind of funny. But as we all know, everything lives in the cloud now. And as a programmer, often if you're running a web server or like a back-end server or front-end server or having a database, often it's hosted on the cloud. And using cloud resources can have a huge environmental impact. Like I said, data centers consume a lot of energy. And the black and white thinking here might be, okay, then I'm not going to use those resources. Or just, oh, I'm going to kind of ignore any guilt that I feel about the environmental consequences of that because I think my tool, or whatever I'm making is important and I need to use these resources. But there are a lot of ways kind of in the in-between. Certain examples are when you are launching a it's called an instance of like a service in the cloud, you can choose the availability zone where that is hosted, which basically means like what data center your service lives in. And different availability zones use different types of power, and there are certain availability zones that use renewable energy. So that's a simple choice that you can make, is selecting an availability zone that uses renewable energy. Another one is when you're like choosing the size of your database. You might say, I'm going to just allocate a lot of storage because I might need it. I don't know. Something that using all that storage uses a lot of energy, and you're not using that right now, so it's just kind of wasteful. So there are ways that you can use right sizing, so you use just as much storage as you need, and you can set up mechanisms that allocate more storage if you end up needing that. So that's just kind of a concrete example in programming, but just in general, I think that it's a muscle that you start to build over time when you start to recognize that black and white thinking. And I think the recognizing of it is the first step to navigating it. So over time, if you just hear certain messaging that you think, oh, that sounds really one-sided, and it sounds like they're trying to convince me of something, I'm not sure if I quite agree with them. Recognizing it is a muscle that you'll build over time, and then a new situation will come up and you'll be like, oh, that sounds like they're really talking in black and white thinking, and I might be able to look further into kind of the middle ground.
Maybe one more in-person question. I know your hand's been up for a while.
Hello, so thank you so much again for, well, it's been said, but for giving this presentation. It's been really helpful insight into both the work of your organization and your job as well. I want to ask, since you mentioned a lot, and you spoke primarily about one of your organization's products, Grid Guardian, which is the AI in the kind of to analyze financial documents. I want to ask how in the development of this product and in its use was the accuracy of this of the AI system, I know you said it was based on Claude, in analyzing these documents tracked? Like, was somebody verifying the calculations that were made? Does somebody continue to verify those calculations, or after like verifying that it's like 99% accurate, is it just released and used without any like further verification, like at each point?
Yeah, that's a great question, and also I think opens the door to talking about how do we integrate AI when we're programming. So for Grant Guardian, one thing that I can say is before the product is released, obviously we conduct rigorous testing using one model. So, you know, Claude has different models. We'll conduct a lot of testing with example financial documents with that one model, and then we also have a backup model in case that model goes out. So we do a lot of testing of both the model that will be used and the backup model before release, and then also after release. We also set up observability and mechanisms so that any of our users who are seeing an issue might want to report that. They can report that directly to us. And then tech is changing, AI is changing so much. New models are being released all the time, and some older ones are being retired. So even just recently, my coworker was conducting testing of one of Anthropic's newer models to see if that would be a good replacement for our current model that was going to be decommissioned. So it's definitely not something that you test a little bit at the beginning and then just release to the world. It's an ongoing process. And with Grant Guardian, it's kind of nice that Grant Guardian is used by Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, by our organization itself. So we have users in-house who we can talk to if they're noticing that anything's awry. We definitely don't have complete control over what the model outputs, but through testing, observability, and monitoring, and continual improvement of the product, we ensure that it continues to work as expected. And then one more thing is that when you're using Grant Guardian, and you provide it some financial documents, the first step is that it pulls out the different numbers for its calculations from the document. And you can't continue to the next screen until you, as a user, look at each number and approve that that is correct. It'll put like the document on one side and then the number that it's pulled out. So it makes you visually check those numbers, which is another way of just like putting a pause on AI informing your decisions and making sure that a human checks all of those things. So there are different things in product development that you can catch any errors. So the user can help catch any of those errors going forward.
That's great. I think we had a couple presenters from eTextiles who are going to come up.
We just wanted to thank you for all the work that you did in leading us through your career and your career interests and how they span since your work in learning through Girls Who Code, the Girls Who Code program, and also how you're able to use AI in software designing to integrate into your product, like the Grant Guardian, and we were really inspired by your advice, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so hi, my name is Ella. I'm representing the eTextiles and Wearable Technology program. And you shared one of your favorite quotes in your presentation, so I wanted to share one of mine. It's from JFK, and it is pretty popular. It goes something like this, that we should ask not what our country can do for us, but what we can do for our country. And I felt really inspired by your work because it asks a very similar question. We should ask not what society can do for the advancement of technology, but what technology can do for the advancement of society. So thank you so much for sharing this today. And So we would love to present you with a Beaverworks shirt, and I think take a picture if that's happening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Not sure if the mic's working. So food, I've been told, is en route. I'm going to just check. I'm just going to check and confirm it. I'm going to check and confirm that's the case.